2014 has been a year of some pretty great movies. However, what sounded like they would be one of said great movies were quite the opposite. These were the movies that the trailers made look like they would be awesome and were so hyped up that we all got excited, but then left us feeling very let down. Here are the top 10 most disappointing movies of 2014. Sin City 2. This one ranks so low on the list because I still enjoyed it for the most part, despite all the things that made it look and feel very unlike the first movie. The art style still looked great and the characters looked awesome as well and very true to the graphic novel. However, the parts in the movie that were never part of the original graphic novel feel very disconnecting. While the Dame to Kill For story was almost identical to the source material and acted out very well, the rest of the movie felt very rushed and cluttered, especially Marv. In the first movie, whenever Marv hit someone, it would focus in and slow down to allow the impact of his actions to have gravity with the viewer. In this, however, it's always rushing to the next scene, and it's not nearly as impactful. After waiting all the years to finally see the sequel, it should have been done a lot better. I, Frankenstein. When I first heard about this movie and saw the trailer, I was already in the mindset that it was going to be a bad movie. I figured movies like Van Helsing were pretty bad, but I still enjoyed them for the most part. So I thought we could get some cool fights, some interesting monster designs from this movie, and it would make up for it. This movie delivered neither of those things. The story itself was worse than I could have guessed, and the acting was as well. The final monologues were incredibly boring and the CGI was awful. I didn't expect it to be a good movie, but at least hoped it'd be kind of fun. But instead it was just really boring. Into the Storm. What this movie failed to fully show in the trailer was that it was an all-found footage film that is mostly just people trapped in something and talking about their regrets. What the trailer did show as well was pretty much every action scene in the whole movie. The majority of the movie is just people talking and it's not even about anything interesting. Every character is boring and predictable and has been done 1,000 times before. If you want to watch a movie about tornadoes destroying everything and enjoy it, don't watch this one. Go watch Sharknado.
Dude, my arm hurts.
Lucy. This movie looked like it had a lot of potential. Scarlett Johansson had been great in all the Marvel movies she was in leading up to this, so one would figure having her as the lead in a movie where she was kicking butt as a super amazing fighter would be awesome. While we did get to see her kick said butt, we also had to sit through a story that was not really creative or interesting and becomes really silly in the end. We all know people don't use only 10% of their brain, but it's a movie so we can go with it. But when she starts developing magic powers just because her brain becomes more efficient, it becomes really impossible to take the movie seriously. As well as that, Morgan Freeman's character was really pointless, so I don't see why they needed a big name in the role when added so little.
Ensure that mankind is ready for it.
The Legend of Hercules. I was a huge fan of the series Spartacus, Blood and Sand, so when I saw the trailer for this, it felt very much like the same action style and pacing. The imagery was almost identical, so I was looking forward to this movie, even though I didn't expect anything to impress story-wise. Unfortunately, the movie's slow pacing, boring plot, average CGI, and some of the worst acting I've seen all year did not make up for the fighting and action scenes, which for the most part were pretty subpar as well. As much as I like Liam McIntyre in the Spartacus TV series, his experience here did not bring enough to save the movie in any way. Pompeii. It seemed like almost every movie set back in an ancient civilization this year has turned out to be really bad. This one at least could have been interesting and tried to show the people's lives and trying to survive the impossible. Instead, the movie mostly focuses on a badly written and cliché romance between two lovers from two different ways of life and a cartoon-like dastardly villain to keep them apart. I thought with Kit Harington, Emily Browning, and Kiefer Sutherland, the acting would be good enough to keep the movie watchable, but it felt like so little effort was put on anyone's part. With a story this boring, I guess who can blame them? But in the end, I was glad the volcano won.
Whatever is happening here.
Dracula Untold. Finally, a new vampire movie to bring things back to a much darker and haunting place, like in Bram Stoker's Dracula, only with a large fantasy army to battle it out. It seemed like it was going to turn out to be pretty good, but the story goes down a hill really fast as the actions of the characters become stupid and the development seems to go nowhere. The epic fight scenes we were promised just become a large CGI mess, and everything in the story becomes less and less interesting. I mean, not much else to say, because not much else really happens in the movie.
Never forget who I am.
Annabelle. It's really strange how lately the second installment of horror film franchises have come out so terrible. Even with almost the exact same production team as The Conjuring, the prequel Annabelle has nowhere near the same level of suspense and atmosphere that it had. The characters are dull and have no real energy to them. The movie only has a few jump scares, which weren't even built up enough to have any real lasting effect on the viewer. I'm not sure if they thought it would be a lot scarier during production and couldn't tell until the movie was done, but maybe they just wanted a quick cash in from the success of The Conjuring. Either way, this movie comes up really short. 300, Rise of an Empire. I was really looking forward to this movie for a long time. 300 was a movie that redefined how action fantasy movies can show an epic scale to battles that were not just two huge armies running at each other. Rise of an Empire, however, lost all the charm from the first movie. While the backgrounds and imagery remained the same, all the characters became dull and uninteresting. The movie's pacing was needlessly slow for some reason, and so much of the movie was just the characters talking about their backstories rather than just letting them develop naturally. The CGI was good, but all the activity going on in each fight made it easy to get lost in what you were looking at. A lot of people said this movie really didn't need to be made, and now I'm gonna have to agree with that. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I admit the first film was not as great as it could have been, but at least it was on the right track. It had some great potential and was really enjoyable. This movie had none of the good things the first movie had. The movie put all its focus in the most uninteresting parts of the story. Peter and Gwen have the exact same conversation of not wanting to be together, then changing their minds around 4 times. They could have cut 30 minutes of pointless scenes from the movie, and it wouldn't have lost anything vital to the story. The villains looked awful, and their motives were basic and underdeveloped. Aunt May came off as annoying, overbearing, and pointless. And to top it off, rather than show Peter dealing with his loss by the end of the movie, they just skip months ahead when he's ready to be Spider-Man again. By the end of the movie, all the excitement is gone and you're just waiting for it to be over, because you already knew how it was going to end around halfway through the movie. Hopefully they learn from the mistakes this movie made before they make the third movie, but I wouldn't get your hopes up for a third Spider-Man movie being any good. Thanks for watching. Next I'll be working on my top 15 most enjoyable movies of 2014 list, so stay tuned.